obviously by today, curl runs on everything and anything that has anything to do with the internet. We kind of established that. But when you started out the project like 30 years ago, like when did you start to see users and like use cases with the project? And I don't know if there was any use of the project that was at the time like very surprising, or like I did not expect that kind of moment.
It started out first. I just wanted to download HTTP data, right? So it started just with me wanting to scratch my own itch there, and then I found the existing tool HTTP GET. So I didn't write that first little spark. That was actually written by another guy, Rafael Segula. So he wrote that called HTTP GET in 1996. He released it in November. I actually found it only a few days later, it turns out. That's even before Google existed, by the way. So, and I started with that, and then it didn't really work the way I wanted it to work. So I sort of sent back a few patches to him. We should do it this way. So I already then became that, first community because he was the maintainer. I started contributing to it, and he got bored by that quite immediately because I don't think he wanted to do much. He just put it online, and here's how to do get HTTP, right? Before that, I had no idea how HTTP worked. I can't claim that I understood it completely the first few weeks either, but then I sort of got into that. So he said, hey, you can continue this yourself if you want to. So I became the maintainer of it, and I put it online. I mean, the updated versions then after I did follow-up releases to that HTTP GET. And I had users finding that and submitting issues and soon patches as well. That happened really quickly. So we had this, I mean, that was a small community, right? Mostly my friends and a few extended friends pretty much right in the beginning. But it started out like that. So I had people contributing pretty much from the start. I mean, at least the first few months, people were finding bugs because it was so naively written from the beginning. So of course it broke many times because it was, I didn't know how things actually worked. And back to the, I wrote the IRC bot and doing TCP connections. So I sort of had an understanding of TCP programming and everything, but I was still naive developer in the beginning because I didn't really understand things. And then I already from the beginning, because I had that background already from the IRC bot to make sure that the code would build on many systems, because we had a lot of different Unix systems back then. I wrote it on a Unix from beginning, and I wanted it to be possible to build on other Unixes, right? So, and then it became this problem: how do I actually people built it on other Unixes, and hey, it didn't work here. You needed this patch to make sure that it also works on these weird Unixes that we have somewhere over here. So it became a lot of feedback just because we wanted it to get to work on all those different platforms that we had. So it started like that. So I had that community pretty much from the beginning, at least from early 1997 something. And then from there on, it has only grown. It has always existed. So it's a great feedback loop. And I already from that beginning, I knew that this was the only way to make sure that curl would actually run on a lot of different systems, because I personally would only have a very small set of systems to actually try it on, right? So it would never work on more than just a few boxes if I had to do it. So I figured I should, of course, do it open source so that we all could make it run on everything and anything that people wanted to run on. So that was one of the motivations for me to obviously make it open source from the beginning. Also, I wanted to be one of those cool people who actually gave out source code to the world the way I had found other source codes at the IBM in the beginning of the 90s, right? I wanted to be part of that cool team that actually gave away source code like that. So for me, it was given that it should be open source from the get-go.
You wrote the code because of your personal need and interest, and like it wasn't something that you were thinking about from business perspective, and you were also inspired by this ethos of open source and like the free software movement, and you decided that you will put this out on the network and for people to find it and go the open source way. And
yeah, and then the positive feedback loop, right? People said, "Hey, great! I used it; it works perfectly, except for this little thing." And hey, I'm missing out this feature. Shouldn't it do this too? And positive feedback. People using it. Excellent. Of course, we should do that feature. Of course, we should add that protocol as well. And and we should, of course, we should, and yeah, it doesn't work. We should fix that. And is it too slow? We should make it faster. It doesn't do that. We should do that. And when people say they like it and they want it to do more, yeah, why not? And if it fits sort of the general goal that we had and the general purpose, sure. And then it just accelerated. And so the first creation of HTTP GAT, I had done libraries in the past already. Sort of, I did that already when I started on long before that. So I had the idea of maybe I should just convert it into a library so that other applications could embed the code into their systems. Because I figured, well, if it works good to do internet transfers, maybe other programs want to do internet transfers as well in an embedded fashion. So I converted into a library in 2000, but I already had that in the back of my head, so it was actually kind of easy to do this conversion. And then that really made it take off significantly more because, first of all, it was just lucky timing, the entire curl thing, right? In timing with the internet and growth and everything, because in 1996, internet wasn't that big. Didn't have that many internet users in the world. I think I looked back, it was 36 million internet users in 96. 36 million compared to 6 billion today, right? Or 7 or whatever it is. So when I created libcurl, the library, it was a perfect timing because PHP, the language, they, I don't know exactly how, but they were on the lookout for adding sort of a HTTP, I think, transfer client into their language. So they basically, as soon as I released libcurl, they just adopted it. Hey, we should put this into PHP by default. So, and they used it immediately. So in the autumn of 2000, they had it in PHP already. And that made it take off a lot because PHP was already then a really popular language for users to build websites with. So that helped sort of just deployment and people using it. And of course, people finding problems and people adding things and kept the spiral going.
So do you think that you creating the library and that lucky coincidence of PHP appearing and deciding that, oh, we should just use this one, do you think that that was the moment when curl and lip curl just kind of quote unquote went mainstream and just really took off?
I, I, I think that was the beginning of it. I don't think we had a lot of users, but I think there was a stepping stone that made it possible then. So, and then of course I think I mean, if we hadn't done it correctly, if we hadn't sort of done our part, they would have cut it out again, went with something else. So it would, I mean, it wasn't done with that, but I think it was a good step for us because it got it out there, got it tested, and got it sort of, so we had to polish everything and make it better and so on. So I think that took it out in the world in a really good way. And then of course it followed up with a lot of other things that happened. I think in my head I didn't view it as a big thing that early on in the project. It still felt like, sure, we're still just a tiny project. No one knows what we're doing. So I think it took several more years until I started to realize that, wait a minute, there are actually millions and millions of users out there.